Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Saying that a harm cannot be removed with another harm, or that a magic can be removed with magic, or a bad deed can be removed with the bad deed. So the best of characters that you are generous, you're humble, you're pardoning. These are good characters, but the best of characters, the best of characters the video is not showing. We'll just wait till Habib returns. I think they had an issue with the video. Also, from the best of characters is to have so this is why it's come in a hadith that people will be raised, they'll be raised who are poor people, weak people will be raised with the tyrants like Pharaoh and all of the other tyrants that came who used to claim lordship. They'll be raised with such people. Why will he be raised with him while he was a poor person in this world? Because he used to be a tyrant upon his family, upon his children, or the employees used to work with him, or the laborers used to work with them. He used to threaten them, he used to make them be afraid, he used to cause them to be scared. This is not becoming. And similarly, the one who threatens his wife for divorce, or he gives these promises that if she does this, I will divorce her. If she does this, I'll divorce her. So we seek refuge in Allah from this. This is not becoming of a believer. Respond a um, the bad with what is good. The most beautiful people on the Day of Judgment. If you want to be beautiful on the Day of Judgment, there are two types. The first type is the one who perfects his worship, meaning like prayer and fasting and charity and recitation of Quran. These things, if he perfects them to be performed and loves them to be performed, this person will be beautiful on the Day of Judgment, because the acts of worship will be their garments on the Day of Judgment. So the most beautiful, so they're most beautiful people in terms of their appearance and their dress and their smell, are those who show excellence in the way they worship. If they fast, they show perfection and excellence in their in their fast. They preserve they they preserve their tongue. They let go of and he also shows uh, perfection in his day and night. So these considered as the muhsinun, and he will be granted the garment. And similarly, if you were to pray the prayer and he performs all of the voluntary acts, the sunnahs, they now appear as a very beautiful appearance. So the second type of person who will be very beautiful on the Day of Judgment is the one with the most beautiful character. So these attributes, these good qualities that you have, they will be your adornment on the Day of Judgment. And the one who was bad in his character will be raised ugly on the Day of Judgment, and we seek refuge in Allah from that. And there's nothing more ugly than disbelief. And we see, for instance, in this day and age, people looking at the disbelievers as if they're beautiful, handsome, they have good clothes, they have good appearances, and they have nice appearances. And if you were to see them, you would be impressed by them. And if they were to speak, people will listen to them. They are the enemies, and be cautious of them. May Allah destroy them this, because of what they lie about Allah. But on the Day of Judgment, Allah Azza wa Jal will say, and you will see those who lie about Allah, their faces will be darkened, black. And we seek refuge in Allah from that. And the people who, and also another description given is that as if there is a dark portion of the night put upon their faces on the Day of Judgment, and see how scary that is. And also it is said about them, and faces on that day will have dust on them. They are the disbelieving, the profligates. So your good character will be um, your your adornment on the Day of Judgment. And the video has paused. So a person with good character, you will start loving him. If you see a person with amazing character, you'll have a respect, and if you spend time, he's talking about the Prophet ﷺ, you will end up loving him if you spend time with him. So the Prophet ﷺ, he dealt with people as if they are the most closest to him. On person, and someone's asking, if does this contradict someone who wants his right back from someone who's oppressed him? To let go of to pardon people means to let go of your rights. It, it means to pardon, meaning you've forgiven them. You've forgiven, you've forgiven them, pardon them from seeking your right back. But if you were to seek your right back, then it's not something that's considered bad character, but you won't get the reward for it. If someone is oppressed, he can do two things: either he forgives and seeks his reward with Allah, or he doesn't pardon and he seeks his right. And so if he seeks his right, it is his right and there's nothing wrong in that, but he won't have a reward for that. Why do they get reward? You weren't patient, so you didn't get the reward of patience. So, and you didn't forgive, and so you didn't get the reward of forgive. So why do you want to expect reward? So for this reason, Allah says the reward of a bad deed is the bad deed itself, and the one who forgives and pardons, then his reward is in the hands of Allah. Then Allah Azza wa Jal says, we know best what they ascribe. Repel evil by that which is better, and we know best what they ascribe. Meaning they're ascribing to Allah attributes of disbelief, or deficiency. Allah is saying, we know best what they ascribe. So don't get upset by them. And then say, my Lord, I seek refuge in thee, in you, from the incitements of the devils. And this verse is very important. قُلْ رَبِّي أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ هَمَزَاتِ الشَّيَاطِينِ. My Lord, I seek refuge in you. Here's a point to note. You can't defeat the devils. You don't see them, and you can't hear them, and you can't hold them. He and his tribe sees them from a place where you cannot see. But the devil, you can oppose him through one way, which is through Allah. Meaning you say, أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي يحضرون. My Lord, I seek refuge in you from the incitements of the devils. So this seeking refuge is to rely on Allah for pushing away the devils, their incitements and their whispers. So you yourself are not capable of pushing away the devils, because Allah says they whisper in the breasts of men, of humans. So the devil is in the heart, not in the mouth. So this is why a lot of people say we do zikr, but the shaitan doesn't leave us. We say to them, if you're doing zikr only by your tongue, then it's not going to work, because shaitan is not in your mouth. The shaitan is in your heart, because he whispers in the hearts of men. So it requires you to seek refuge in Allah in your words and in your state. Meaning, I am relying on you, my Lord. I am relying on you that you preserve me and protect me from the whispers of the devils. So Surah An-Nas, which is you're seeking refuge in Allah. You're seeking three refuges. You say the first one is, I seek refuge in the Lord of the people. It's the first isti'adha. The second one, then he says, I seek refuge in the King of the people. The King of the people and the God of the people. His lordship, his kingdomship, and his godship. From the evil of the whispers of Khannas. Khannas is that which becomes small when you do zikr. Who are they who do it? From the human devils and the devils, the jinn devils. And what you know is that a human has a qareen. He has a qareen, or someone who is with him all the time, which is a jinn or shaitan, and there he has some who are angels. So this qareen, who's a jinn, he's followed by devils. So So the your Qareen hands you over to devils, and those devils hand you over to other devils. So these devils have steps. They have they have a role, for instance, in stopping you from recitation of Quran. Then he hands you over to another shaitan. The, the second stage, so for instance, he stopped you from reciting the Quran. Then he gives you another idea. So if you accept that idea, he hands you over to another devil, and then he gives you to a devil who tells you how to implement the idea. So if you answer that devil, then he transfers you to a fifth and a sixth and a seventh and a hundredth devil, up to 1,000,000 devils they can transfer you. And then these devils, they trick you and fool you. They fool the people. And so for this reason, Allah has mentioned the plural, which is incitements. So as we mentioned, despite their great numbers, they don't affect in the human. They don't affect in humans. One verse or one seeking of refuge in Allah, or one remembrance of Allah with sincerity in your heart, can destroy all of those devils. They fall on their faces, the armies of devils, all of them. So these incitements, these hamazat, it's like how he's mentioned in another verse, nazg, which is, it also means incite. He incites you. And all have a similar meaning, hamazat and nazg. Also the nafkh, and also the nafth, the blowing, and they all have a similar effect. So the hamazat and nazg, they befit they the hamazat and nazg is from the jinns, and the nafth is from the humans. And this is particularly the case for the magicians, because the magicians, uh, they the magicians, when they do their magic, they have their names of the devils that they recite, and then they blow upon a human or something related to a human, and that affects the humans who are weak in their faith and weak in their because also in Qul A'udhu Rabbil Falaq, Allah says that I seek refuge in Naffathati fil Uqad, those who blow into the knots. So the breath or the blowing that they do, um, uh, these magicians do, it gets nullified by the nafath of the believers. This is why the Prophet said, when we come to bed, when the first we do, we recite the three quls, and we recite upon our hands, like how Habib is holding, and then we blow three times, we spit without any actually spit coming out, and then we wipe over as much as we can on our body. So that nafath, that blow that you do, it nullifies the blowing of the devils. This is a nafath that is mixed with the Quran and Ar-Rahman, and it mixes, and it nullifies and breaks away the nafath of the devils, and also it untangles or breaks the knots of the devils. Because we know, when if one of us were to go to his bed, the devil comes to his head and ties the first, second, and third knot, and says to him, you have a long night ahead of you. And these knots are basically a means of these knots make someone feel heavy when he has to wake up to pray. So when he wants to get up, we find it really difficult to get up. So these three knots So before you sleep, you read these 3 chapters, and you blow on yourself. Then the effect of the devil gets lessened based on your truthfulness and your sincerity and your belief. Because there are a lot of people who don't believe in this, and they say, what is this? Because Allah says, as for the one who gives and it has taqwa, and he believes, and then we make things easy for him. So then the verse says, say, my Lord, I seek refuge in you from the incitements of the Satans, and also Shaitan, the devil. He is nurtured through desires like germs. They grow in filth, in trash, like the vermin, like the insects and the bugs. They grow in places of dirt and trash. And similarly, the devils, they grow through sins, through najas, through impurities, and through desires, to the point they get fat and big. So the one who is used to not doing a lot of zikr, then he's overcome by the devils. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the one who turns away from the dhikr of Ar-Rahman, the one who turns or distances himself from the dhikr of Ar-Rahman, we tie for him a shaitan who becomes like a partner for him, and who blocks all the paths for him, and he thinks he's guided until if he comes back to Allah on the day of resurrection. He says, oh, how I wish that this qareen was very far away from me. So when do the devils become present, and we seek refuge in Allah from them? So what is the reason for the devil to have an effect on the humans? There are things that help the devil to take over a person, and obviously the most significant of them is sin. And sin is the best nutrient or best food or diet for the devil. There are other things also that the devils love, and from them is like najis. Anything that has najis, that has a ritual impurity, then know that it is a means of the devil for coming. Like trash, for instance, anything that has ritual impurity in it, or a place where there is ritual impurity like najis, whether it is a place like the toilet, which is a house of the devils, or a garment. Some people, they wear clothes that have najis, or they say this is a dry ritual impurity. True, but it is a place for the devils to come. So the ritual impurities and the places where ritual impurities are, they are places where the devils go to. So also don't wear dresses which have najis on it. If your dress gets najis, has ritual impurity, then wash it immediately, or put it in the dirty clothes baskets, because you might forget that this dress is dirty and it's got ritual impurity on it, and you'll forget about it, and then you wear it again and pray many prayers, and then you'll remember afterwards, and then you'll have to repeat all those prayers. So it is injunction to one to purify what is najis. So firstly, najasa is a place where the devils go to. Thirdly, the other place where the devils come are places where nakedness is exposed. Any place where the nakedness opens is where the devil comes, and that's one of the most beloved things for the devil. The most beloved thing for the devil is to see people naked, and this is what the Quran says. When Iblis misguided or tricked our father Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so he misguided them, and then when they tasted from the tree, their nakedness became apparent to each other. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Oh my oh children of Adam, don't let the devil misguide you all, like how he took your parents out of the paradise, and so that you remove your garments, so that the nakedness becomes exposed. Now the meanings of nakedness, the Mufassirun say, that when they ate from the tree, it caused it caused a digestion problems for them. So they had to so they had to remove that, like they had to free themselves from, like there's a need, the call to nature. So this is not something that was in the paradise, because in paradise there was no need for someone to go to the toilet. So when they came out, they saw their nakedness, and they had to cover themselves. So that's what the devil wants. He wants to expose the nakedness. So any place where there is uh, where there is exposure of nakedness, that know that place is where the devils are. And so also, for instance, the beaches or places like that, so a person should be careful. Also, it says, "Oh, children of Adam, just the mere you removing your garments, know that the devils are looking at your nakedness. They're looking at your nakedness. He is looking at you with a stripe from a place where you're not aware of. So why do we read the dua for entering the toilet? We say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubathi wal-khubath, and from min al-rajis al-najis al-khabith al-muqbath al-shaitan rajim. Um, so the places of najis, ritual impurity, places where nakedness is exposed, the devils are apparent there. Also, the devils uh, come to places that are dirty, are filthy, even if they're not ritually impure, like houses, for instance, or places, or apartments, or rooms that are that have a lot of dirt in them and trash in them, or places where the things that are there are things where Muslims shouldn't have those things. So those places, the devils come. Also, the devils love places that have a stench, places that have a bad smell. This is what the devils like, and the opposite also is true. So the angels like covering the nakedness, and they like the angels like good smelling places and people, and they like good smelling places. So also the incitements of the devils, it means whisperings basically. They are inside of a human. So one of us, the moment he gets a thought, and if he accepts that thought, it turns into his idle speech in himself. And if he continues in that, it converts into a whisper, a waswasa. And if he accepts that, it turns into a resolve, then into a worry, and or a concern, then it becomes a intention, which is basically when he performs the act, does what he. So the waswasa, it is when the shaitan incites you once, twice, three times. And the cure for waswasa is to seek refuge in Allah, and to not look at or turn at what the devil is putting in your heart. So the presence of devils, as we mentioned, is when there's no zikr, when there's less recitation of Quran, and what we should know is that the devils spend night and eat. They spend night with people and they eat with people. It's come in a hadith that if a person enters his house and he didn't say Bismillah, the shaitan says, the devil says, oh, I've guaranteed for you a place to spend the night. And then if he eats without saying Bismillah, he says, I guarantee for you a place to spend the night, and I guarantee for you a place to, I guarantee for you food as well. So they spend the night in the night in your house, in your house, in your bed, because Allah says that partake with them in their wealth and in their children, to the point that if a man goes to his wife and they don't say Bismillah when going to his wife for procreation, then even at that point the devil partakes in the act with them. He says, I guarantee for you a place to spend the night with. So if a person enters his house and he doesn't say the dua of entering his house, of saying Bismillahi walajna, Bismillahi kharajna, oh Allah, I ask you for a good entrance and a good exiting. By in your name we enter and in your name we exit. Rabbi anzilni munzalan mubarak wa anta khair munzilin. So if he does not come with dua of entering his house, then the devils enter with him and they sleep in that house. This is from the hadith. Not just one devil, but many devils. So if a house, a devil has entered, what can you imagine would happen in that house? What about if there are 2 devils or 3 devils or 4 devils, God forbid, and they spend the night on the beds and the bedrooms of people? So the life in that house will be difficult. There'll be a restriction, there'll be constraining, there'll be an absence of tranquility, and you can't even and the devils, if they come into a house, the house looks small. Ibn Abbas and Ibn Masud and other Sahabas say the house in which the Quran is recited becomes big for its family, and a lot of good comes from it, and angels come to it and the devils leave it. See, the house in which the Quran is recited, no matter what the size of the house is, whether it's big or small, 1 or 2 bedrooms, it doesn't matter. The house in which the Quran is recited, it becomes big for its family. It is, in reality, it hasn't increased, but what's happened is that you feel at ease and comfort, and you feel, even though the house is small, it's outwardly restraining and restricted, but you feel a peace and calmness and tranquility and intimacy just being in that house. And a lot of good comes from there. Meaning there'll be barakah, there'll be blessing, the food has barakah, the time has barakah, the children are blessed. They have guests coming over there, and some people are they get surprised. They say, how come this house has so many guests even though the house is so small? And also then they say the angels come to that house, and when the angels come, they come with their own tranquility and their own light and their own forgiveness, and then the devils have to leave. When the devils leave, they leave, take with them that restrainment and the sins in the house in which the Quran is not recited, becomes restricted and restrained upon its family. So you'll see sometimes you enter into houses that are big and expansive and has a lot of rooms, but you feel restrained and anxiety, and you feel as if you are you can't even breathe in those houses, and there's very little good in those houses, and the angels leave those houses and the devils come into that house. This is in one house. So for this reason, what about recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah? The recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah, shaitan does not enter a house in which the Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, and no magicians can overcome or enter to the house. So we should protect ourselves with the Quran and Surah Al-Baqarah. And when he eats and he doesn't say Bismillah, then the devils eat with him. So for this reason, and you see in houses, people eat a lot and they don't get filled up, or they get filled up in a quickly, but after some time they get hungry again. It's because they didn't say Bismillah, so the devils were eating with them. And then he says, and I seek refuge in you, lest they should be present with me. Now, the presence of the devils, it exists. It's not just in our houses or our food or in our families, but also they are present in our prayers and when you're making wudu. Because the prayer has a specific devil called Hinzib, and wudu has a shaitan as well specific for it. It's called Walhan, and every sin has a devil for it. It is a specific special devil who specializes in how to delude a person to fall into that sin. So zina, the fornication, has sins that are that have devils who are specialized in that, and riba, usury, have devils who specialize in that sin, and also the sin of drinking, and so also for prayer, there are devils who specialize in that. So to block the ways of the people towards going towards their Lord. So and when you pray, the devils come at that moment sometimes. So the things that can push away the devils is a simple thing. The people neglect it, even though the Prophet ﷺ explained it and clearly, and that is the use of the toothstick. The Prophet ﷺ said that if I were not afraid of making things difficult for my ummah, I would have made them obligatory on my ummah to use siwak at all of their prayers, and in another narration in all of wudu, every time they're making wudu. So what is the point of me using the toothstick? Some person can say I use the toothbrush and toothpaste and what's that? It's not to do with the teeth, cleanliness of the teeth and the smell of your breath. It's to do with the secret of the stick. The Prophet ﷺ said, siwak is a purification of the mouth, is a means of getting pleasure of the Lord, and is a means of making the devil angry. It debases the devil. It is as if you're hitting the devil on his brain with that toothstick. It makes him upset and makes him dislike. So this siwak that you see, simple thing, if the devil sees it, he gets angry, he gets upset, and he gets debased and disgraced, as if you hit him on his head with a hammer, but with a pair of slippers. This is a disgrace for the devils. So when you do your siwak before prayer, you are then distancing the devil from yourself. A person may not understand this, but I'll give you an example. If you were to see a snake in front of you, God forbid, what would you do? Your natural response would be to distance yourself from it, because this is a snake. This is something that is poisonous. This can maybe attack you or even kill you. Maybe it could even swallow you. So the devil, for you, there's no way you're going to play with the snake or try something out or test. And if you can't defend or yourself from it, then what you do, you run away from it, because it could kill you. Similarly, the devil. When the devil sees the siwak, he sees it the way we see the snake or other carnivorous animals like lions and tigers. Or he sees siwak as if it's something that stinks. Things that are beautiful smelling, they appear to be stinking for the devil. So So, like how you were to distance yourself from places that stink, and you would flee from them. Similarly, the devil, if you were to see you doing siwak, using the toothstick, then he gets angry and upset, and he distances from you. So this is why it is recommended to use the siwak in acts of worship, and the most important are three places, which is the prayer, and also at the time when you make wudu, because that's also when the devil comes. So when you make wudu, you should do siwak, so it makes the devil angry. Also, when you go to sleep, and very few people do that, because we know that the devil comes in your dream. He comes to your sleep, and how does he come to your sleep? He comes in your dreams and shows you strange things and bad things that make you get afraid. He's come into your dream, onto your bed. So if you were to remember Allah and made wudu and done siwak and blown on yourself and done all the sunnahs, it would have made him smaller and smaller and weaker until it has no effect on you, like a fly. Like a dog that is barking from far away, and you can't hear, it doesn't cause any fear. This is what I wanted to recite, and inshallah tomorrow we're going to talk about the presence of devils in other situations in the human life, and we ask Allah that He protects us all from the incitements of devils, and He protects us all from having the devils present around us. Oh Allah, we've wronged ourselves, and if you're not to pardon us and forgive us, we'll be from the losers. Oh Allah, you are most pardoning and generous, and you love to pardon, so pardon us and forgive us. And praise and salutation be upon our Master Muhammad. Al-Fatiha. Habib is wishing all of you well. May Allah make faith endearing to us. May Allah make us take on upon the good qualities of the Prophet ﷺ. The du'as for protection are the intention for attending gatherings online, and many people are heedless of these things. They're to make intention when attending a gathering of knowledge online. So as for the du'as that you can read for distancing the devils, is to not just rely on the du'as. Some people think that just by reciting some du'as it will distance the devils. True, the du'as are important to say Rabbi a'udhu bika min hamazati shayatini, a'udhu bika rabbi an yahdurun, a'udhu bi kalimatillahi tammati min sharri ma khalaq. These all distance, if you recite them 3 times, distance the devils. Also, their actions that distance the devils, being preserved, staying in the state of wudu and doing dhikr. These are from the most important things that distance the devils. Also, to be continuous in your dhikr of Allah. And also, we will explain that in the next lesson in more details. What is then the of a woman in her house, or when she's alone, or when she's with her husband, her daily life with her husband, the awrah, it has of different types. The awrah of a man is different of a woman, or with his relatives is, or with other men is different. So the fuqaha, also the woman, her nakedness to his navel. True, that is the bare minimum. This is a bare minimum that everyone should have it covered from your navel to your knee. But that doesn't mean that a man should stay like that, or he sits with his children like that, or he with his friends like that. No, this is called bad manners. No shame. Similarly for the woman, let's say if it's said to a woman, the awrah for the woman is between her navel and her knees, in front of her children and husband and relatives that she cannot marry. But this is considered bad manners, and it's also there's something called manners and there's something called shame, modesty. That does not mean that if it's not part of your nakedness, that means it's not. That doesn't mean it's not bad. So where is the station of haya, of protection, of preservation, of shame and modesty? One can say, as long as my awrah is covered, which is from knee to navel, I'll go and pray, wearing my izar only, where I can cover my knee to navel, and I'll pray. We'd say prayer, in terms of its conditions, it's correct. You've covered your nakedness, you face the qibla, but that is not accepted. Why is not accepted? Because you are someone with bad manners. There's a difference between you having a right prayer and you having a prayer that is accepted. So we're not looking for correctness of prayer. Don't look for correctness of prayer, but look for acceptance of prayer. So not all who are right that are accepted. Not all who are right are accepted. When it is said he's correct, it's only correct in terms of jurisprudent knowledge and the conditions. But in terms of acceptance is through to khushu, through humility, through sincerity, and through taqwa. Allah accepts from the muttaqeen. Or maybe I will delay the topic on talking about awrah, nakedness, because maybe outside Ramadan, because I'm afraid to talk about, because a person wants to preserve his wudu from talking about things or what is related to the stuff. We'll talk about this after Ramadan. A similar question. So what? The same question, Muhajir Ali. As long as people are asking. So since people are asking, a woman in her house, there is the major nakedness, which is known, which is between knee and navel, and then there is nakedness between a woman and her husband, and this has no limit. And then there's a nakedness between between her and her children. The ulama say the the fuqaha say something, but etiquettes and manners is something else. Maybe you can expose her neck, her hair, her hand, her arms, and her legs, her feet. But as for exposing the hair, the hadith of Sayyidina Jibreel, when he did not enter or come to the Prophet ﷺ because Sayyidina Khadija had her hair exposed, because angels are beings of immense modesty. So and shame. So angels or groups of angels do not attend a group or the gatherings of knowledge. They don't they don't they don't enter out of shame. But that does not mean that it's something bad. It doesn't mean that it's something bad or ugly. If a woman wants to remember Allah, then it is recommended for her to cover her hair, so that because of this hadith, and also as from the means of exalting the and also angels are are shamed have shame. For instance, the Prophet said the angels have shame from Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. But that does not mean that a woman is always covered in her house with her hair covered as well. This is her freedom, that she can do whatever she likes. If her husband feels restrained and restricted that she's doing that all the time, and he wants to see in her what he is not allowed to see in others, then it is prohibited for her to she should do that, because hair for a woman are part of her beauty, and the best and the most correct place for her to show that beauty is to her husband. So if she's always covering her hair, it'll be a negative effect on her husband, and she'll be doing a mistake by preventing uh, uh, herself from doing that which Allah has made obligatory on her, which is to make herself beautiful for her husband. So this requires some control and not being extreme, and need balance. And in this day and age, a person is for a woman, a wife, she should help her husband in lowering his gaze, because the trials are immense, and she gets rewarded for that. A woman is rewarded when she adorns herself for her husband, and she intends in that to help him lower his gaze. Then she is rewarded for that, because she is helping in obedience to Allah and taqwa, and that which pleases Allah. And Allah Azza wa Jal will make her appear more beautiful in the eyes of her husband. And similarly, the man, that if he lowers his gaze from other women, then Allah Azza wa Jal will give him in exchange a beauty that Allah will create in his wife for him to see. So he will see, every time he looks at his wife, he will see his wife more and more beautiful. Allah gives him that beauty. So, especially if a person fights his lower self and his desires, the more you lower your gaze from what is prohibited, Allah gives you in exchange beauty that will appear in your wife for you. So every time you look at her, she appears more and more beautiful. And on top of that, you'll be getting a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One person's asking, what is a siwak? Siwak is the arak stick. It's in another pocket. If you were to type siwak on Google, you'll see it. It's a toothstick. Actions are based on one's intentions. I saw a dream where I read as I was reciting the verses. In general, if you were to see in your dream a verse that's telling you to turn to Allah, it has two meanings. The first meaning, that you will call people to Allah from the people who call to good and prohibit that which is evil, inshallah. And the second meaning is that is calling you to turn and flee to Allah and return to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. The question is, if when we're fasting, is it okay to use siwak after the zenith point, the sun, or is it makruh, is it disliked to do that? In the Shafi madhab, the dominant opinion, that it is disliked to do siwak after dhuhr. But Imam Nawawi shows that it's not disliked, and also many of the other scholars in Hadramaut that they do siwak even after zawal. There's nothing wrong, but one should be careful that it shouldn't have some kind of a piece that goes inside, or some kind of a water or spit in it that takes it, and then he swallows. If he swallows it, then it breaks your fast if he does it intentionally. And siwak should be done lightly in Ramadan, but not excessively in while fasting. Zakat, how do you protect yourself from black magic? With the Quran Al-Kareem, the adhkar, and to rely on Allah, and then nothing is going to harm you, inshallah. Quran and the adhkar, and to stay in wudu, and to rely on Allah, inshallah you'll be protected. A person, is it obligatory for him to give zakat if he a young person who has no job and he lives in his father's house? Zakat doesn't mean he has a job or he has money. If he has something that is worth the nisab amount and a year has passed by, then it becomes obligatory on him to give zakat on that. Is it obligatory for a woman to give zakat who's divorced and she has to pay her bills? It's not related to whether you're bachelor or married or divorced or not. If it's about you having an amount which is above the nisab amount, and he's not in need of that money, and it stays with him for a year and hasn't gone below the amount of nisab, then he gives 2.5% of that for zakat. It is permissible for you to do siwak as he's mentioned, but to not swallow anything that detaches from the siwak. Allah knows best. They're asking how to do siwak. So siwak is in my other pocket. If we were to assume that this pen is a siwak, you hold it like this. The thumb is underneath the head of the stick, and the small finger is also below, and the three fingers are above. And he starts from the middle, and then goes right, and then left, and then he does on his tongue. This is how the siwak is done. Inshallah, we'll clarify that in the next lessons. Allah bless you, put you all in the trust of Allah.